1. SC-900, Microsoft Security Compliance and Identity Fundamentals. The entry-level Microsoft certification, validating foundational knowledge of security compliance and identity across Microsoft Cloud services. Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft's cloud-based identity and access management service, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory, the previous name for Microsoft Entra ID. Microsoft's enterprise identity platform providing authentication and access management. Identity, the digital representation of a person's service or device used to authenticate and gain access to resources. Authentication, the process of verifying the identity of a user device or service before granting access. Authorization, determining what an authenticated identity is permitted to do or access within a system. Single sign-on, allowing users to authenticate once with Microsoft Entra ID and access multiple applications without repeated logins. Multi-factor authentication, and requiring 2 or more verification methods such as password and phone approval before granting access. Chapter 9. Password Hash Sync. A Microsoft Entra Connect feature synchronizing a hash of on-premises passwords to the cloud. Pass-through authentication, validating user credentials directly against on-premises Active Directory during cloud sign-in. 11. Federation, establishing trust with external identity providers, allowing users from partner organizations to access Microsoft resources. 12. Conditional access, Microsoft Entra ID policies, enforcing access controls based on signals like user location device, health, and risk level. 13. Identity protection, a Microsoft Entra ID feature detecting risky sign-ins and compromised accounts using machine learning. 14. Privileged identity management, a Microsoft service managing monitoring and auditing privileged role assignments in Azure and Microsoft 365. 15. PIM, privileged identity management, enabling just-in-time access to elevated roles, reducing the attack surface of admin accounts. 16. Just-in-time access, granting elevated permissions only when needed and for a limited time to minimize exposure. 17. Zero Trust, a security model requiring continuous verification of every user device and transaction regardless of network location. 18. Least privilege, granting users and services only the minimum access rights necessary to perform their functions. 19. RBAC, role-based access control, assigning permissions based on job roles rather than individual accounts, simplifying administration. ABAC, attribute-based access control, controlling access based on attributes of users' resources and environment for fine-grained policies. 21. Managed identity, an automatically managed identity in Microsoft Entra ID for Azure services, eliminating the need to store credentials in code. 22. Service principal, an identity used by application services and automation tools to access Microsoft resources. 3. App registration, the process of registering an application in Microsoft Entra ID to enable authentication and API access. OAuth 2.0, the authorization framework Microsoft uses to grant limited delegated access to resources on behalf of users. 25. OpenID Connect, an identity layer built on OAuth 2.0, providing authentication and user information to applications. SAML, Security Assertion, Markup Language, a standard for exchanging authentication data used in federation scenarios. 27. Microsoft Defender for Identity, a cloud-based security solution protecting on-premises Active Directory from advanced threats and compromised identities. Microsoft Defender for Cloud, a cloud security posture, management and workload protection platform for Azure and multi-cloud environments. 29. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, an enterprise endpoint detection and response platform protecting Windows, Mac, Linux, and mobile devices. Microsoft Defender for Office 365, a cloud-based email security service protecting against phishing malware and business email compromise. 31. Microsoft Defender XDR, Extended Detection and Response, a unified platform correlating signals across endpoints, identity email, and cloud apps. 32. Microsoft Sentinel, Microsoft's cloud-native SIEM and SOAR platform for threat detection investigation and automated response. 33. SIEM, security information and event management, aggregating and correlating security logs for threat detection and compliance. 34. SOAR, security orchestration, automation, and response, automating repetitive security tasks and coordinating incident response workflows. 50. Threat intelligence, information about current and emerging threats used to improve detection and response capabilities. Microsoft Secure Score, a measurement of an organization's security posture in Microsoft 365 and Azure with recommended improvements. Attack surface reduction, capabilities in Microsoft Defender, reducing the number of attack vectors available to adversaries. 38. Endpoint, any device connecting to a network, including laptops, desktops, servers, and mobile devices that require protection. 39. EDR, endpoint detection and response. Tools monitoring endpoints for threats, detecting malicious activity, and enabling investigation. XDR, extended detection and response. A security approach integrating detection and response across multiple layers of the environment. Microsoft Intune, a cloud-based mobile device and application management service enforcing security policies on devices. 42. BYOD, bring your own device. A policy allowing employees to use personal devices for work, requiring security controls. Mobile device management, enrolling and managing devices to enforce security policies, compliance, and remote wipe capabilities. Compliance, meeting regulatory, legal, and organizational requirements for data security and privacy. 45. Microsoft Purview, Microsoft's unified data governance and compliance solution for discovering, protecting, and managing data. 46. Data loss prevention, policies detecting and preventing unauthorized sharing of sensitive data across Microsoft 365 services. 47. Information protection, classifying and labeling sensitive data to apply appropriate protection controls automatically. Sensitivity labels, tags applied to content in Microsoft 365 that enforce protection policies such as encryption and access restrictions. 49. Retention policies, rules defining how long content must be kept and when it should be deleted for compliance. 50. E-discovery, tools in Microsoft Purview enabling legal and compliance teams to search, preserve, and export content for investigations. 51. Insider risk management, a Microsoft Purview solution detecting and responding to risky activities by internal users. 52. Communication compliance, monitoring communications in Microsoft 365 to detect policy violations and regulatory compliance issues. Audit log, a record of user and administrative activity in Microsoft 365 and Azure, used for security investigation and compliance. 54. Microsoft 365, Microsoft's cloud productivity suite, including Exchange Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and security tools. 55. Azure, Microsoft's cloud computing platform, providing IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS services globally. 56. Network Security Group, an Azure control filtering inbound and outbound network traffic to Azure resources based on rules. 57. Azure Firewall, a managed cloud-native firewall protecting Azure virtual networks with built-in threat intelligence. 58. Azure DDoS protection, a service-absorbing distributed denial of service attacks before they impact Azure resources. 9. Azure Bastion, a fully managed service providing secure browser-based RDP and SSH access to Azure VMs without public IP exposure. 60. Azure Key Vault, a cloud service for securely storing and managing secrets, encryption keys, and certificates. 61. Azure Policy, a service enforcing organizational standards and assessing compliance across Azure resources. 62. Azure Blueprints, a service packaging together policy role assignments and resource templates for repeatable compliant deployments. 63. Management groups, containers organizing Azure subscriptions for applying governance policies at scale. 64. Subscription owns. Azure billing and access control boundaries used to organize resources by team, project, or environment. Resource groups. Logical containers for grouping related Azure resources for management and policy application. 66. CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management. Continuously monitoring cloud configurations against security best practices. 67. Regulatory Compliance Dashboard. A Microsoft Defender for CloudView showing compliance status against standards like NIST and PCI DSS. 68. NIST Cybersecurity Framework. A voluntary framework providing standards and best practices for managing cybersecurity risk. 69. ISO 27001. An international standard defining requirements for an information security management system. SOC 2. A trust services framework auditing controls for security, availability, processing integrity, and confidentiality and privacy. GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, EU regulation governing personal data protection with significant Microsoft 365 compliance implications. 72. HIPAA, Health Insurance, Portability and Accountability Act, U.S. Healthcare Privacy Law requiring data protection controls. 73. PCI DSS, Payment Card, Industry Data Security Standard, requirements for organizations handling credit card data. Phishing, fraudulent messages designed to trick users into revealing credentials or installing malware. 75. Ransomware, malware encrypting victim data and demanding payment, a primary threat addressed by Microsoft Security Solutions. 76. Business email compromise, attacks impersonating executives or vendors to fraudulently redirect payments or steal credentials. 77. Spam, unsolicited bulk email, filtered by Microsoft Defender for Office 365 using machine learning. 78. Safe links, a Defender for Office 365 feature that checks URLs in real time when clicked to block malicious destinations. Safe attachments, a Defender for Office 365 feature detonating email attachments in a sandbox to detect malware before delivery. 80. Anti-phishing policies, rules in Microsoft Defender for Office 365 detecting and blocking phishing attempts. 81. Attack simulation training, a Microsoft tool running simulated phishing campaigns to educate users and measure security awareness. 82. Security defaults, baseline Microsoft Entra ID security policies automatically enabling MFA and blocking legacy authentication. 83. Legacy authentication, older authentication protocols like Basic Auth that do not support MFA and should be blocked. 84. Passwordless authentication, signing in without a password, using Windows, Hello, Biometrics, FIDO2 keys, or the Authenticator app. 85. FIDO2 Fast Identity Online 2. A standard for hardware security keys, enabling phishing-resistant, passwordless authentication. 86. Windows Hello for Business, Microsoft's biometric authentication system, using face recognition or fingerprint for secure sign-in. 87. Microsoft Authenticator, a mobile app providing MFA approval push notifications and passwordless phone sign-in. 88. Security Operations Center, a team of security analysts, monitoring, detecting, and responding to threats using Microsoft security tools. Threat hunting, proactively searching through data to detect threats that have evaded existing security controls. Incident, a security event requiring investigation, containment, and remediation tracked in Microsoft Sentinel or Defender XDR. 91. Alert, a notification generated by a security tool indicating a potential threat or policy violation requiring review. 92. Triage, the process of evaluating alerts to determine severity, legitimacy, and the appropriate response priority. 93. Remediation, taking corrective action to address a detected threat and restore normal secure operations. Automation rules, logic in Microsoft Sentinel automatically handling routine alert actions to reduce analyst workload. 95. Playbook, an automated response workflow in Microsoft Sentinel triggered by alerts to execute remediation steps. 96. Microsoft Graph, a unified API providing access to data across Microsoft 365 Azure AD and other services for security integration. 97. Defender for cloud apps. A CASP solution providing visibility and control over cloud applications used in the organization. 98. Shadow IT Discovery. Identifying unauthorized cloud applications used by employees through log analysis in Defender for cloud apps. 99. App Governance, a Microsoft tool, monitoring and controlling OAuth app permissions and behavior across Microsoft 365. 100. SC-900 exam. Microsoft's 45-60-question certification exam covering security compliance and identity fundamentals across Microsoft cloud services.